Sega on SNK, SNK on Sega. These two companies, whose journeys through the industry may have more similarities than many realise, have been in a lot of conversations recently. Much of that is down to the incredible coder known as Hoffman. The mastermind behind some incredible Amiga work, he ported Sega's arcade classic Shinobi to Neo Geo hardware. That was a mere 3 weeks ago, and I covered the port on this channel, and in that astonishing short time, Hoffman has been at it again, only this time he's ported Golden Axe to SNK's premium console. This isn't just a simple port either, oh no, so join me, Dan the Mega Driver of the Sega guys, as I take a look at Golden Axe on the Neo Geo. When Hoffman released Shinobi on the Neo Geo a few weeks back, he stated that he was moving on with his next project. Many guessed that Golden Axe would be next for the Neo Geo treatment. Those individuals must have known a little something, since it wasn't long after that Hoffman was sharing updates of his progress. The first glimpse of the port was accompanied by a post saying that it was progressing faster than expected. And not long after, we had footage of some broken but playable gameplay, at least according to Hoffman's post. But as Hoffman continued to provide updates via social media, we saw that he encountered some issues, the first being the unique copy protection that Sega had put in the game, meaning that a bootleg version wouldn't have hit detection. After navigating that, the next big challenge appeared to be the mid-level colour palette changes. According to Hoffman's post on the 25th of January, he had to completely rework the graphics conversion to ensure that the Neo Geo allowed these colour fades just like the arcade. According to Hoffman, navigating this issue took 3 days, but he was soon sharing his progress, demonstrating that those palette changes were indeed in effect. While a straight port of the arcade game would have been a huge engineering feat on its own, this port bears an improvement over the original arcade with some enhanced sound. You see, after finding that many of the voice samples in the original game were taken from 80s films like Rambo, Conan the Barbarian and American Werewolf in London, Hoffman decided to dig out those original films and then resample those audio clips. And so, on February the 12th, Hoffman released the port on his itch.io site with the same exhaustive support as Shinobi, with ROM sets and images to allow play on the Neo Geo AES, MVS, Neo Geo CD and MAME. The CD version even has the benefit of a CD soundtrack, with the officially licensed, rearranged themes by composer Richard Douglas giving the CD port an extra bit of gravitas. For the non-CD ports, fellow homebrew dev Artemio helped in supplying recordings from the original Sega 16 PCB, which then Hoffman converted to work on the Neo Geo sound hardware. So that's a very quick overview of how Hoffman was able to get this port to the Neo Geo. And you can find more information on Hoffman's itch.io site, his YouTube channel, Twitch channel and other social media feeds. As for the game itself, well, this is classic Golden Axe. For those who may not know, Golden Axe was a side-scrolling beat-em-up released by Sega in 1989 for the Sega 16 hardware that was essentially thought up as Double Dragon mixed with Conan the Barbarian. You choose from one of 3 characters and you hack and slash your way through hordes of enemies with your blades and magic. In fact, one day the Sega guys really need to do a full retrospective on this series. But for now, we're looking at this port, and this version really captures everything that made the arcade original such a stand-out experience in its heyday. It's content complete, so you have all 3 characters with all of their moves and all of their magic. All of the stages from the arcade are present and correct, as well as are all the music tracks and graphical effects. This does of course mean that the game doesn't contain the home exclusive stages created for the Sega Mega Drive port, which really shouldn't come as a surprise. My interpretation of this project is that the purpose was to create an arcade perfect conversion, and the Mega Drive content with its downscaled visuals would have been both challenging and visually inconsistent if those stages were added, not to mention that it would go against the prospect of a pure arcade port. So with that aside, the game plays absolutely brilliantly. From my playthrough, sticking with my trusty main character, Gilius Thunderhead, I was able to make my way through the game very much in the same way I always have done. Interestingly, it was exactly 1 year and 1 month from the release of this Neo Geo port that we covered the 32X port on the Sega Guys channel, and as such, that footage we used in our 4-way breakdown is quite useful here. In the footage you're seeing now, we have the Sega Mega CD version, which is near enough identical to the Mega Drive port. We have the Sega 32X fan port, the original arcade game running in MAME, and the new Neo Geo version. This lets us see how it fares side by side with those versions. Straight away, we can see that the Neo Geo port is far more faithful than the Mega Drive and Mega CD ports. Those ports back in the day felt arcade perfect, but looking at the 16-bit versions now, you can really see all the nips and visual tucks that made them get onto the home hardware. The 32X port, meanwhile, does a fantastic job at restoring some of the arcade content and visuals on the Mega Drive base, but ultimately, because of the hardware, it falls a little bit short. All things considered then, it's absolutely amazing that the Neo Geo, hardware that was 4 years older than Sega's add-on, leaves the 32X port in the dust with this game, though it should be noted that the Neo Geo hardware was around 4 times as much as Sega's 32X at retail. Anyway, with the home hardware out of the way, we can look at the arcade original, and then we see that it is incredibly close. There are a few tiny things that I noticed. First of all, the stage number seemed to be missing from the heads-up display, and the number of credits is displayed as a 2-digit figure rather than 1 digit in the arcade original. These are really minor things, possibly linked to the way that the Neo Geo hardware itself works. In-game, the version of the original that I was playing on MAME didn't have the transition to sunset in the penultimate stage that you see in the Neo Geo port. I'm not sure if this was something that was added later, but it's certainly something that seems as an improvement in the Neo Geo port over this version of the arcade original. I also felt that some of the enemy behaviours were a little different, but it wasn't obviously so. And honestly, that's all I could find. I'm sure that there'll be some eagle-eyed Golden Axe diehards out there that will find other minor differences. And this is acknowledged by Hoffman himself in a post on his itch.io site that says that there are minor differences and edge glitches that would take more time to fix than would be worthwhile. But as I said, I really couldn't find anything that was really detrimental, and the project as a whole is incredibly impressive. I even tried out the 2-player mode, albeit with me playing with both characters. You can see how well that turned out, and the game did not miss a beat. So, how do you play this game then? Well, if you have Neo Geo hardware, you should be able to load it up on your system via flash carts for the AES and MVS, or a burned CD for the Neo Geo CD. You can also emulate. Once again, my knowledge of Neo Geo emulation isn't great, and that meant that I couldn't try anything other than MAME. In this case, it's as simple as loading the mslug2 MAME file into the emulator via command line. Details on how to do this are in my previous Neo Geo Shinobi video. Links to Hoffman's itch.io site are below, and I recommend giving him a follow on social media and subscribing to his YouTube and Twitch channels, as it brings all of his fantastic work to life. As for this port, I think it's utterly fantastic, giving Sega's arcade classic a new lease of life on different hardware, bringing with it all the brilliance of its late 80s debut in an adventure that has lost none of its charm. If you love classic Sega at all, you owe it to yourself to check it out. And as such, we'd love to know what you think of this port, so please leave your thoughts in the comments section below. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching, and if you could leave us a like and a subscribe, we'd really appreciate it, as it helps the channel, and we just passed 10,000 subscribers, so thank you to everyone who has made the Sega Guys what we are today. That's all for now. Until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.